Good afternoon, everybody. It's Debbie and Rolo here. Not sure how long he'll stay, but today we're delving into book 3, The Dragon's Pram, and this is actually chapter 4, which is called The Dragon's Pram, and it's all about the task that Rolo and Chickpea have to do with bringing something back from the Iron Age. That night, without being summoned, I took myself to the Athelstan tree. A glance at the piled heap at the foot of it reassured me that the egg was real and not a figment of my imagination. I hoped that Chickpea had understood the urgency of my whispered message. Whilst we were waiting for her, I asked Athelstan something that had been puzzling me ever since I'd met Rhydian, the Welsh dragon. I remember once overhearing the floppy-haired boy telling the smiley lady that the English used to have a white dragon as their symbol on their flag. Is that right? Athelstan unfurled himself from the tree trunk and bent his face down close to talk to me. A history lesson for you, little pup. Hengist and Horsa were brothers who landed in Britain with other Angles, Saxons and Jutes in the early 400s to fight for Vortigern, then the King of Britain. Hengist went on to rule the Anglo-Saxons for a period of around 30 years. His symbol was that of a white dragon, and when his army went to fight against the people of Wales, strangers, which we now call Wales, it was true that the red and white dragons would actually meet in combat, and I don't just mean their pictures on the battle flags. I tried to take this in, but I didn't really know what Athelstan meant. Whilst the tree dragon was talking, I kept glancing down at the heap of leaves, trying to detect any sign of movement, which would surely mean new dragon life. Rolo's just moved, so I'm just moving the camera. Reading my thoughts, Athelstan said, "It's too cold for the egg outdoors in the forest. It needs to be kept at a constant temperature for the next few weeks." What happened to the white dragon then, if it was a real dragon and not just a picture on a flag? I asked, returning my gaze to the tree dragon and keen to know more. "Perhaps he is still there," said Athelstan mysteriously, and then retreated into the bark. "Tell me when your little friend is here," said the voice as it faded. Food for thought. I'd heard the smiley lady say that the white dragon flag was proudly carried into battle at the head of an English army right up until the 11th century by the kings of Wessex. I wondered why it wasn't used anymore. A curious sound of creaking broke into my thoughts, and I saw Chickpea wriggle through the undergrowth, pushing something that looked very much like a doll's pram. "Will this do?" asked Chickpea, struggling with her exertion of pushing the thing all the way from her home. Rolo, you're wriggling. Let me show you the picture of Chickpea pushing the dragon's pram. There we go. "I think it's perfect," I said, impressed with the little terrier. "I found it in the garage. It belongs to my people, but I don't think they play with it anymore." "What do we need it for?" she asked eagerly. Yulia and Dar held up their lanterns, illuminating the heap of leaves at the base of the tree. Athelstan revealed himself again. "Oh goody, are we having a bonfire?" squeaked Chickpea. "Goodness gracious, no, fires aren't allowed in the forest in any case," admonished the tree dragon, leaning down to survey the scene. Yulia and Dar set their lanterns on the ground and motioned to Chickpea to bring the old pram nearer to the heap. The woodland folk gently scraped away the leaf mould and revealed the glistening egg. Chickpea's eyes were as round as dinner bowls at this revelation. I explained in hushed tones about the dragon egg and how I'd brought it back from the Iron Age, and that it couldn't stay in the forest because it wasn't warm enough to hatch. And there was also a big risk of getting broken. "Well, where are we going to take it then?" asked Chickpea, all ears. "My house," I said a bit louder for the benefit of the assembled woodland audience. I've found the perfect hiding place in the airing cupboard. It's hardly ever used, and I had a look in there when I was exploring upstairs, and there's a pile of old towels and bath mats on the floor in there. We could tuck the egg up behind the water tank. It would be very snug. In fact, I wouldn't mind sleeping in there myself. Yulia giggled. You won't have to hatch the egg yourself, Rolo. Of course not, I know that, I said. I thought your people had a stair gate to stop you going upstairs. How will you be able to access the airing cupboard? Said Chickpea. They took it down and said I was to be trusted now because I'm a good boy, I answered with a smirk. She didn't say anything to this. Remember having her cat flap locked for a while after she went missing during a previous adventure. It will make a perfect incubator, but you will just have to keep an eye on the temperature, said Athelstan. Don't let it get too hot or too cold. You can add or remove towels as necessary. Everybody helped align the pram with moss and leaves to stop the egg from being damaged during transit. The old doll's pram had very little in the way of suspension, and I feared the egg may be in for a bumpy ride. All we had to do now was transfer the egg into its pram, but how are we going to do that? We all stood round looking at each other. Athelstan suggested that Yulia and Dar hold on to the pram wheels, and he directed Chickpea and I to very carefully manoeuvre the egg with our front paws, lifting it up and then laying it back down gently onto its mossy bed in the borrowed pram. We managed to accomplish this delicate task without too much fuss, but we did squabble all the way home, fighting over whose turn it was to push the pram and blaming each other when the egg bounced alarmingly every time the pram wheel caught a tree root or went down a pothole. Miraculously, we reached my garden. New challenge. How on earth were we going to get the pram through the garden gate? It certainly wouldn't fit underneath, which of course was my usual point of entry. Wait there, Chickpea instructed, and she squeezed under the gate and into my garden. I thought so, she said when she poked her nose back under the gate on the forest side. There's an old trampoline at the bottom of your garden in the nettles. If we push it over here, I can jump up and open the gate. Sometimes Chickpea can be annoyingly clever. We managed to shift the small trampoline between us. It was more robust than the dragon egg, and sure enough, Chickpea bounced high a few times and worked away at the bolt with every bounce up in the air. I love this drawing. There you can see Chickpea bouncing on the trampoline. The egg lay quite oblivious to the drama, snug in its pram. Eventually the bolt gave way and the gate swung open. We'd better put the trampoline back in the nettles in case we need it again, I said, and we collided in our eagerness to push the pram into the sanctuary of the garden. I was dreading seeing the floppy-haired boy appear at his bedroom window. So we're going to leave it there for today. So that's the third book in the Secret Adventures of Rolo series, The Dragon's Pram, and I'll be back at 2:00 tomorrow with another reading. Thank you very much for listening. Bye for now. Bye from Rolo.